We have these thresholds and these benchmarks that we frequently get disappointed by because we pulled a time out of the air or a distance out of the air or a place out of the air, and then we beat ourselves up instead of just showing up and doing the work and then enjoying the progress that happens when you commit to a process that's long term and then you have fun along the way.
Are you ready, buddy?
Hey, happy Monday. It's February 24th, 2020. Welcome aboard Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 350.
It's a nice number.
It is a nice round number, and over the weekend, you sent me a little text message yesterday afternoon about another fairly large, at least to us, round number that we actually hit over the weekend. Even though I got to say, you scoffed at the idea a few weeks ago that I said we'd be hitting that fairly soon. You were like, nah, man, like 2023 is probably when we're going to hit it. But over the weekend, thanks to an incredibly patient and loyal and awesome and generous and again patient fan base, we hit
1 million downloads.
1 million downloads. And I think the best part of that, well, there's a lot of bests, and maybe we'll talk about that in a minute, but and it's your first time, and again, if it's your first time listening, bear with us for a minute, but my favorite part of that, as I was doing a little bit of reflecting, was you followed that up fairly quickly with I remember back to the very first week we did our podcast, and the first week we had a total download of 63.
63 first
I
week.
was I know, and I remember I was living in Kansas City at the time, and again, like a million is probably not a lot to like the bigger podcast people, but it's definitely a number I never in a million years thought we would ever hit, much less 350 podcasts itself and everything that's gone on that's been attached to this podcast and our community and our team and the growth. But I remember getting excited when you'd be like, text me, like, dude, we had 100 downloads today, or we
I know.
like those are the days, man. And I think I think there's a lot of things we could take away from that I think is ring true to a lot of the things that we preach about on the podcast or try to instill in our listeners on ways to train and ways to look at life and the importance of just showing up and not having like gigantic expectations and these visions that sometimes can cloud what we want to do in the immediate future because we're so obsessed with what we're not doing or what we want to do 3 or 4 years down the road that you make decisions that might not be good. And the best thing that we've done is we've just shown up. I mean, we've put out, I think, a lot of really awesome podcasts, and I'm sure we put out just as many that have probably sucked. But we haven't been deterred. We've had our we've got over now with 1 million downloads and over 400 5-star reviews. We also have a lot of clunkers for that people didn't appreciate it, but we never let that deter what we wanted to do, and that was just to have open conversations and dialogue about triathlon, about life, about training, connect with each other, and then hopefully help other people connect. And we've stayed true to that since the beginning. And I think that's one of the best things that we've been able to accomplish. But I think there's a lot of analogies you could spin off on how it translates to life. But it's a very humbling moment, and I say that with like the utmost sincerity. I think being humbled is kind of an overused word, but it is. It's humbling, and I think that got to thank my mom and your mom for participating and downloading over at least 600,000 times to make this
No, we bought them separate
somewhat
computers.
close. I mean, I know it's but no, yeah. Everyone
You're
who's
the
listened,
cash.
especially at the beginning, yeah, we appreciate it, and it's been an awesome ride so far, and I can't wait for the next chapter.
Yeah, it is. I'm always on that, and I like to, from the get-go, we've been telling people to write about their process and do the things like this, and this really is just kind of us having faith in the fact that we were doing something that we felt like was a good thing, and we we didn't have like answers or anything like that, but then you put faith and then you put effort behind faith. There's a lot of power in that, and that's funny you said humbling, because everybody says I'm just so humbled. That's
I
like the
know.
first thing out of the speech. Humbled.
Yeah, I'm
But
humbled
it
to be
is,
here.
um, that's a lot of time. I just kind of looked it up. If we would have stayed at 63 a week, that would have taken us 43 years to hit 1 million. Do we have that much faith, you think?
I
I
don't
mean,
know,
like at what
man.
point? Like what point was the number? Man, if we would have just barely been getting by 100 a week or something like that, how long would you stick with it? I think it's an interesting question. Like if you're seeing certain results in triathlon and you're not seeing, like how do you put that in your head, right? Uh, if I'm improving, but it just doesn't feel like I'm improving enough. I don't know how long I can stick with this, but
Well,
I
the
don't think that was the point with us. It was just we were improving in our own mind because we talk to each other and we want to get that's kind of the gist of it, right? Is that we're talking it out for each
yeah,
other and
I
then it,
think
it sort of
I think the most important number for both of us has been two.
yeah.
To just make time through holidays, through sick kids, through travel, through the passing of your dad, to all kinds of life obstacles. Is just let's just commit to. Because I remember exactly when you asked me, you think we can commit to twice a week? And at that time, it seemed like a lot. And some weeks it seems like not a lot. I think, like, God, maybe we could do another one. And then some weeks I'm like, man, I mean, I don't know how I'm gonna do these two a week, but it's just showing up twice a week, getting it done. And I think we've always the efforts there, the result, and I think when you have a podcast or anything where it can be consumed by different people and living different realities and expecting a certain thing, that you're never going to hit everybody on the right day with the right message. But our genuinely our effort has been to provide a podcast that allows the door to be open to hopefully do our best to provide information about training, about racing, about life, and how they intersect with each other and how they complement each other, go through the obstacles, the pitfalls, the successes, the great times, the failures, as both personally from you and I as coaches and athletes, and also from the people that we work with, even from a lot of people who contribute to our Facebook group, which is Crushing Iron Group on Facebook. We even had a podcast that was this last one we did 349 last Thursday that was 100% based on the athletes that are in that Facebook group. But that's just been the goal, is to not be. I've enjoyed the fact that even though I know some people say you guys got to get sponsors, you guys got to get people to pay. I'm like I just like not owing anybody anything, and I love the fact that we've been able to keep this genuine and just an open conversational format. And I think some podcasts people tend to take hopefully our triathlon advice, and apply that. And I think sometimes our podcasts lean more towards just life. And again, if we can do anything positive and provide any kind of positive experience for you that are listening right now, whether it's through your triathlon racing, through it's your training, through it's this period in your life that might be challenging. If we can provide anything that is a positive influence that you can apply to your life, then we'll have made this podcast itself will have been a huge success. And that's why I love it. I love it that it's not just about triathlon. I love it that it's not just about the 8 fastest ways to improve your 10K time with these easy steps. Step one, purchase this super special mask that covers your 85% of your nostril and allows you to exhale only this specific, level of carbon dioxide, and propels you to the fastest time ever. I like not going down that road. I love it. And the stuff we talk about is sometimes hard. I think it's easy to, or hopefully we do it and deliver it in a way that's easy to consume. But a lot of the stuff is hard to apply. And it's about consistency. It's about working hard. So putting the effort out. And hey, we try to have fun. We try to throw in as many useless analogies as I can through this, and you throw out as many yeah mans as you can, and that's what makes the world spin.
Mm. I love what you said about just showing up earlier. I mean, you've said it a few times and there is something to be said about that. Well, we know that, but think about it in terms of a training plan, for example. And what we talk about, there's especially with running and almost everything. It's not like all hard business, right? So if you go out and you're running, like, let's just throw out that 80-20 thing that everybody talks about. So, 80% of your stuff is literally just showing up and going out there. You know, there's no like necessarily a goal like that you have to go out and crush something. You just kind of got to do it. And it's weird that if you think about it in terms of a training plan, that most of the stuff is really literally about going showing up and not really looking at your numbers too hard and just kind of being, moving around. It's it's showing up is such a underrated part of life on every element. It just get on the bike. I mean, we talk about that too. It's just put the shoes on, get on the bike. That's showing up to me, and it can be the hardest part. But once you get there, things just start happening.
Getting out the door, getting in the pool, getting your bike shoes on, whatever it is. It's the hardest part is getting the clothes on, getting the run shoes on, getting in the pool that seems to be like 65 degrees when you touch it and you're like, God, I really don't want to swim today. And then inevitably when you get done, you think, that I feel so much better versus the internal, struggle that would have been, I really wish I would have done that. And now I'm beating myself up because I didn't do it. And I was already beating myself up before because I didn't want to. And then why do I feel that way? And just there's so many like the internal, like the mental and emotional dialogue that we all have like with training and are we proud of ourselves? Do we feel guilty about not or about skipping something? How do we feel and how do we navigate those feelings and how do we hopefully mitigate those to the bare minimum. I think we're all going to have those to an extent depending on what the size of our goal is, how close it is, how close we are to that race goal. I think that's, and that as a coach, like that's, I know that if I would say, because I think I tried to do this, if you maybe over the holidays, I was like, yeah, I'm just not really, we have work, we have travel, and it was during Christmas, I think, and I was like, I'm good with just one a week, and you're like, let's just go ahead and just go ahead and get one out of the way, and it can be fairly short to keep the streak going. And I was really glad that we ended up doing it, even though it was a little bit, it was harder with the schedule. I was glad we did it, and I just think that we all have this internal dialogue that for most athletes, I think, is very hard. And I know we talk about this a lot, but as we get into race season and we get a better understanding of how our fitness level and where our training has gone, and then again as race day gets even closer and closer and closer, it's really interesting to see athletes' mentalities and their emotional stability kind of start to rear their head in terms of what they really feel, because we're all super super confident when we're far away from a set goal or a race. We're like, oh man, I'm in the groove, like I feel great. And then as we inch ever so closely to this event or however you want to talk about a race or your big day, things we kind of like get to tense up. And like that, going back to what you were talking about in terms of just like showing up and not having these gigantic expectations, just show up like two times, a week, and then you kind of see where you end up is a great way to look at training progression too. Like you have these, we don't have events as a podcast. We don't have these thresholds that we feel like we have to meet because if we did, it would take the fun out of it. And we've discussed that at different periods of time while we've helped create this team and been part of this community and ours podcast has grown. It's like, all right, where do we want to be in a few months? And every time we would like kind of set out goals or benchmarks, we kind of thought, all right, well, yeah, do we want to get or do we want to get there? Well, maybe, sure. Does it sound better to want to get there? Yeah. Does it feel like you are being more specific with your what you're doing? Sure. But then we now have to attach what we're doing with the pass or fail. Did we get there soon enough? Did we get there, quick enough? Was the marketing, all that kind of stuff? And we just kind of sat back and decided, well, we just kind of want to just keep doing what we're doing and we'll end up where we end up when we get there. And that's made this podcast so freeing and something. And that the most important thing for me is specifically, and I think you would agree, is that it's kept me wanting to do this because it's fun. We have literally no expectations, which I'm sure you can probably figure that out on some podcasts, that we have no expectations for each podcast except to just show up, have a conversation, focus while we're doing it and do the best that we can. And if people can take something positive, that we'll call it a win. We're not going to please everyone all the time, and that's okay. I don't think you should, because I think if you do that, then you're not being true to yourself. And but the training is the same way. We have these thresholds and these benchmarks that we frequently get disappointed by because we pulled a time out of the air or a distance out of the air or a place out of the air, and then we don't. We beat ourselves up instead of just showing up and doing the work and then enjoying the progress that happens when you commit to a process that's long term, and then you have fun along the way. Because after that, it's all about like it really just it's all about fun, and it's all about seeing where you end up. And like, yeah, it's a million fun, but like today I'd already forgotten about it until we got on the podcast. And it's like, what's the next goal? 2 million? Oh, that's, I wonder when that's going to be. Probably, I don't know, in like 5 years. Who knows? Don't know. Don't really care. I just think it's a cool milestone, but it's not going to change. It's not like we're going to change our podcast now. It's just, I think it's a good example, and a good illustration, hopefully, to use, is we've all have these benchmarks and these things we want to accomplish with racing and in training, but it's all about patience. It's all about showing up. It's about putting the effort in, and then those things, if you can do those things, you can keep that at the forefront of your mind with racing and training. Is it's going to keep it fun, and they're going to be able to do it long term, which is also going to increase your ability to, or your chances to reach your full potential. Most people never, ever, ever reach their full potential, ever, because either not consistent enough, or they give up way before they're going to get there, or they get burnt out, or they get hurt. They just don't reach it. It's almost in everything you do, whether professional, performance, personal, all those, the relationships you're in, the work you do, the everything. It's you have In order to reach your absolute best, you have to stick with it, and it is so hard to stick with anything these days, because you're getting pulled and prodded and poked, and trying to be entertained this way and pulled this way, and here's a quicker, easier way to get there. I know you're on the right track, I know you're feeling good, and I know you feel like you're headed in the right direction, but if you don't think it's happening quick enough, then what you can do is change everything, and I can probably get you there overnight if you want to do this. And it's a temptation that's out there, and but it's rare. You're rarely ever rewarded for making it.
Let's double down, right? No, it's you're really good at grounding me actually. It's kind of interesting. I've been in marketing. I was in big corporate marketing for a long time, and there's always this pull. Uh, I'll read stuff like, Steve Jobs, and think about the greatness of, quote unquote, that he put into Apple Computer and how that changed the world and everything. And then you read these books, and we all read them, and we're all thinking, man, I got to be like Steve Jobs.
Hmm.
And the reality is you're not going to be Steve Jobs. I mean, do you know what that takes? I don't know the timing and the commitment and what have you. But I was talking to somebody last night about this. How I think a lot of younger kids today, exposed to so much, and I was using the analogy of athletics, so basketball, say. There's probably, I'm in Nashville, and if I were to guess, there may be, a dozen kids in eighth grade or ninth grade that might have the potential to make, say, the NBA. Physical traits, whatever it may be,
And
and
that's being
everybody,
generous.
it could be, but if you think about it, it's one of these things where, and I think a lot of even college players are thinking, oh man, I'm in college and I should be on the NBA. What they don't see is the work that it takes. So, like, if you have the physical ability, you definitely have to be the person that's working on things while your buddies are out eating pizza and drinking beer or something after a game. There's so much more that goes into it. But in that regard too, you could say maybe there's 50 that could be Division One players, and uh, they'll end up in Division Three because they're not working at it, or they're not consistent enough, or they don't do the work or whatever. So there's just these nuances in skill and athletes and dedication to the sport and things of that nature. And it is the consistency that matters here. And in our situation, it's the accountability forces that each other, right? So we show up every day or every week, twice a week, and we just do it. And that's not accountability where you're pressuring or I'm pressuring you. It's just one of those things. And then we don't have to every day have a power workout or a power cast or anything like that. We just keep doing it, and we're getting comfortable, and things have gone well. And it's amazing how patience and consistency can work in everything. It's just so hard to see. And that's why I think milestones are nice, but like you said, it doesn't change anything.
If you look at milestones, or you look at numbers, as we're using, hitting 1 million downloads as a number, as a threshold, as a benchmark, or a measure of success. I think that's where so many athletes get lost, and maybe not lost, but I think that's where so many athletes head down the wrong road, is that we attach success on a physical performance on a specific day that generates a specific number, either to grade ourselves personally or grade ourselves against other people. But you and I would both agree, and I know this, that if we even named the top 10 or 20 things from that we've been the most thankful for out of this, that we've gotten out of this podcast, and the people we've met and the places we've been and the community that we have and the relationships that we have now and what we're able to do now, reaching 1 million downloads wouldn't even be in the top 20. Like there's so many things that we've been able to get out of this that I never could imagine. And nor would I've written them on paper. In terms of like, and I think we all do that. With you get your boss comes in and it's like, all right, it's time for Q4. Let's write down all our sales strategies, all the thresholds we're going to hit. We're going to crush it. We're going to get up by 10%. We're going to create 100 new leads this week. We're going to have a closing rate of 94%, and we're going to boost sales by 220%. And if everybody does that, you're going to get a 1% bonus this month. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's crush it. How are you going to do this? And then you're like, well, sounds miserable. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And because now it becomes work, right? Because now it's becomes something that you don't want to participate in, because now, and this is like, because I used to do so many things with like sales, and it was like they just throw these like random ass numbers out of nowhere, like, we can definitely reach this. I mean, look what happened to Wells Fargo. You create a gigantic demand for having to reach these unattainable sales goals, and you end up creating millions of fake accounts, and now you have to pay $5 billion. So like there's a lot to be said for, not like, I'm not saying don't have goals. I think there's a lot of people out there would tell you that goals aren't necessarily overrated. I think outcome based goals are often not maybe overrated, but can send you down a path of obsession on how we now have to grade ourselves, because of, we've spoken this out. Like, I want to, like, there, everyone wants to qualify for something. I want to qualify for Boston. I want to qualify for 70.3 Worlds. I want to qualify for USAT Nationals. I want to qualify for whatever it is. And for some of those, there are, obviously time goals you need to attach with that. Boston specifically, you're not necessarily racing the field, you're racing yourself, which has its own, difficult strategy, because you could have a really, really great day for you and you could get it, or you could have a really bad day and not get it. It's not about, showing up to an event. You could have a bad day and everybody else has a bad day too, and you place on the podium and you qualify for 70.3 Worlds, you get a roll down slot. Because the thing is, you can't control life, and you can't control who shows up, and you can't control what their not perspective, but what their goals are, their outcome-based goals are as well. But we always like to compare ourselves to other people, even random strangers. We do this. I've talked about this before. Like you get in the swim line, and what do you start doing? Besides, for most people, panicking and making sure their goggles are like sealed so tight they're never going to come off their face. You just like look around and you look at people and you think, yeah, I think I can probably take them. Like, we do like the look over, how like females do. When a lady walks in the room, the first thing you do is like see how they're dressed. Oh man, look at those shoes. Like, who would wear those? I would never be caught dead in those heels. Those look like trash. Or, oh my God, those are so cute. Let me see if I can look those up on, Pinterest, Amazon, or whatever. To do real quick, we automatically start judging things. Meanwhile, the person that we're judging against, to either fuel our ego or to give ourselves confidence or to tell us that we can't do things, is they're like walking by us and thinking, I don't even know who this person is, but I see you later. Or or look at that person, like swim cap, it's so crooked, they have their logo facing frontwards. Like, but we get stuck in this mode of comparing in these outcome based goals that now run our lives. And I think it's a huge temptation, and again, I'm not telling you that you don't need to have goals, but I'm telling you, when it comes to outcome-based goals, you are setting yourself up for failure or a letdown or missed expectations, or just continuing to feed the fuel that is that emotional and mental warfare that goes on, of not being good enough or not getting fast enough. And it's not you're taking the easy way out, it's that there are so many things in life that have an impact and an influence on how things are going to go when it's an outcome based result versus I can go out in this run, or I can go on this ride, or hop in the pool, or do this race. And if I give my effort against the day, against the elements, against what life is giving me, then that's the best I can do. Then I'm going to at least learn something, and then you apply it. Most people who have only and strict like outcome-based goals, even if the outside factors or stressors, if there's crazy wind that day, if it's 100-degree heat and they've only been training in like the 40s, or something happened on the course, like they're not going to take any of those into account, right? They do in training. It's like, oh, I've been feeling pretty, I expected this to go well, but then I look back and I only got 3 hours of sleep, and I had, a cheese dip milkshake for breakfast around 3 a.m. And so what did I expect? But when it comes to racing, people are like, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm getting slower. And you're like, dude, you were like 3 minutes slower than you were last year, but look at the conditions and look at what your life has been like. Oh, well, yeah, I guess that's true. I should be like really happy with that. Um, but it's I think it's hard, and I think that the more of a groove we get in, the more successful we become in whatever we're doing, professionally, personally, and performance wise. We we tend to like lean that way towards, all right, things have been going good. I really got to get this, or I really want this. And I'm reading a book right now, and one of the things it was telling you is like the closer you get to success, the closer you get to your goals, you're gonna want more. You're gonna want to do things differently, or you're gonna want to do things even better. What it's a good thing, but what oftentimes, in which can cause you to take risks. But what you should do is, instead of, of doing this or buying this or investing in this, is just, instead of, be grateful, do nothing. And I think like that is the total opposite of the world we live in now, which is, if you have an impulse, you act on it. If you feel good about something, you do something even better, or you harness up. But I think there's so much to be said for just be grateful and do nothing. Not as in do nothing at all, but as in like do nothing different. Stay the course, stick with the horse that, got you there, the program that got you there, with whatever it is, and just stay true to that. And then don't, because then, like, we live in a world where change is like the sexy thing. Everyone needs to change. Everyone has to alter things all the time to keep people's focus, because everything is about distraction based entertainment now.
Yeah. Hey, did you watch or get anything on the Fury Wilder fight by any chance?
I watched zero of it. No,
Okay. No, I
no.
know. I didn't think you would, but it
Yeah,
was
I mean,
interesting.
that was like, I think it was over when I was getting up, I think. That's how things go. No,
um,
I didn't watch any of it.
yeah. I just heard something on the radio that I thought was really interesting and applies here. They were interviewing this other boxer, Antonio Tarver, and I don't really know anything about him, but he was talking about how he'd never been knocked out, he'd never been knocked down on his back, he'd never been cut and everything like that. And he was talking about Fury won the fight, obviously, and he was talking about Wilder, who was the you know allegedly dominant champion and everything like that. And he said, look, this guy has, he goes, as I watch this fight, he's got a really powerful right hand, and he's shown that he can get to the top, obviously, like that. But he said, if I as I look at him, he doesn't have the foundation to be a champion. And I was like, wow, that's pretty, because he was talking about basically the chassis. He said, if I were him, I would strip it all down. I would get a different trainer, and I would just build my body up the right way, because he's like, he doesn't have the strength and endurance to be at the top for very long at this current way he's training. So it just really it kind of applied, I thought, to what you were saying right there regarding, you kind of move up to the top, and then you sort of change everything, and you want more and all this kind of stuff. But if you don't if you haven't built up that chassis or that foundation in your training, then things are just going to keep getting harder and more confusing. And you're going to be tempted all the time to try some quick fix or some kind of, you know, different way to get to the top. So it's just interesting to think about in terms of like these guys thinking about that in boxing, but it's just sort of the same thing that we go through with training, because you can always have that goal to qualify, like you're saying, and I've had it for so long. That was always sort of my driver, and it's so weird because I would it would almost force me into that quick fix mentality or that hack mentality, because I would never really give my body a chance to build up the way it should. And i.e., let things sort of take care of themselves. Let your talent come out based off of a good, well balanced foundation. So there's
When
your
people
boxing.
when people yeah, when you said like Wilder versus Fury, I was thinking like Van Wilder. When people look at if people listen, people in everything that's qualification based. You said nationals, Boston, um, 70.3 worlds, Kona, what like any kind of qualification or even I mean or just getting onto the podium. If you know people love to qualify for things and they see this experience and you know they watch the NBC broadcast and they see like, oh, I want to do that. And then if immediately, instead of rolling the credits after these shows or these broadcasts are done or what they televise or stream, if or you walk by a person who's getting off the podium, you know, and you're like, God, I want that one day. And then that person walks by you and you turn around and look at them and on the back of their shirt lists all the sacrifices they've made, all the hours they've trained, all the volume, all the intensity, and then how many years it took them to get there, how, and then where they were when they started. A lot of people would change. They'd be like, you know what? I don't really want that. That's I'm fine. Like, you know,
I'm
that's it's
good.
like, you know, you go out to a restaurant, like, man, that steak looks good, and you're like, yeah, I'll have the ribeye, and they're like, are you aware that it's $50? And like, that's actually good. I'll take the lettuce wedge, with my dressing on the side. No, thank you. So we see these things that we want, but then when because we don't do a deep dive into the amount of hard work and time and consistency it's going to take to get there. It takes so much time, and that time is based on your ability and your availability, but also the means you have to stay focused and be consistent. And then there's also like to me people's obsession with outcome-based goals, which to me are time, and then again qualifications are the same because it's an obsession that's based on not just an outcome-based goal and you could have your like the perils of the athlete that are obsessed with the Kona qualification that they have to go to Kona or they have to get back to Kona is nothing you ever do is going to be good enough unless that happens. You could show up to race day and have the best race of your life ever that your body is probably capable of putting out. And if there's one person that shows up that has the same unbelievable day, the best day of their life, and they finish ahead of you, or they take that spot from you, they take that roll down, whatever it is, and you don't get it, now how are you going to judge yourself for the day? It was a failure. But was it? And I get that that specific athletes have a mindset that might be different. It might be it's not wired differently. It's that they're wired to want to complete a different task. But for so many other athletes that are outcome-based goals of sub 2 hour half marathon or you know sub 4 hour marathon, whatever it is, it's for so many athletes it's like drowning. You are suffocating all the fun out of your life, out of your training, out of the experience you could have. And then even if you like sniff or reach that outcome-based goal, you're scratching your way to the surface. You take one quick breath and you go back under because now it's something else has to be done and you're going to hold your breath until you think you've done it or you think you've gotten there. And instead of, am I having fun? Sure. Am I getting healthy? Sure. Am I being consistent? And do I feel like I'm heading in the right direction? Like, obviously, you want to be heading in the right direction and down these paths. If we started this podcast and and not even like if we looked and saw, all right, well, like we've never had huge trends that like our podcast went like through the roof. It's just kind of been what you and I love to call is like it's just been a slow burn, you know, hurry slowly, or you know, we're not trying to set like you know a million different you know inferno blazes here with gasoline. We're just trying to create like a really slow, consistent burn. Like so, obviously, you want to be headed in the right direction, but you want to feel like I've never thought, all right, our podcast is not heading in the right direction because it just doesn't feel right. I've been more concerned with does it feel right? Does it feel like we're being genuine? Does it feel like we're being authentic? And that's always been what's most important. And who knows? Could we have probably gotten on, you know, the top 10 fastest female and male triathletes on the planet to have them on the podcast? Could we have done a bunch of things to probably get some like huge surges and huge day downloads? Sure. And I'm sure all those people are fantastic. I'm sure they have a lot of value to bring. I'm sure that the podcast that they've been on, I'm sure they've done a wonderful job, but I would not have enjoyed them as much. Um, And so I think that when we look at training and we look at the feedback that we are looking for ourselves as athletes to reaffirm our feelings or to reaffirm our emotions or to know that we're heading in the right direction, that's really all one person needs to know. And I use this phrase a lot. I've used it a lot today or this morning in Athletes Training Peaks was don't forget that we look for progress, not perfection. And that's a phrase I picked up in AA. It's something that's used, it's a phrase that's used a lot there because and I think it's perfect for training because if you train consistently, there's going to be one better workout of the week, one awful workout of the week, and the rest are just going to kind of be, whatever, you know. But that's all we're looking for. Like we're looking just to make progress, not perfection, because perfection is something that's really unattainable, and it also tends to create this false sense of accomplishment based on how the outside world sees us, or if we're not this then we're failing. So you give yourself a 1% shot of being successful in that perfection, and the rest of the 99% is failure, right? And it's not successful. But it's about showing up, and it's about your intent. Like that's another thing that I really try to strive home with athletes is that I know you had a negative comment about your result today, but I love the fact that you just went out there because it's intent that matters. And your intention and your effort is what mattered today because you're not going to always have the best result. You can go out, and we've all done this. You can go out feeling like I'm going to have the best workout of my life. I feel incredible, only to figure out that your legs are like, no, thank you. We're not doing this today. But the intent was there, right? If you're just listening to your body and putting effort in, I had that run last week. I had ran on, I think, Wednesday. I think we talked about it on the Thursday podcast. I went out thinking, dude, gonna feel awesome today. Spring in my step, running like a gazelle. Ended up running like a rhino on a tranquilizer. Like it was absolutely one of the worst runs I've had in a while. I felt like I was running backwards. And then Saturday morning, I got out of bed. Hayden is pretty sick right now, and we were up at like 3:30 in the morning on Saturday. He was hopping in the shower to like help get the junk and like mucus and stuff out. So it was early morning. Went back to sleep. I was getting later starts than normal. I had a lot of coffee, and I was like, man, I really don't want to go run today. And a long trail run, and I was gonna go to Lookout Mountain, which I haven't run long on there before. And I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna do it. And went out there and had one of my better runs, and I don't know how long. And I just think it goes to like I think the thing is that we can't reinforce that I don't know, or I'm not going to know how it's going to go until we get there, until the half the work, until we just continuously do it, till we continuously show up, till we keep understanding that. Because I think when you continuously show up, when you just put the effort in, when the intent is present, when you have, a good perspective on things, that the more you do that, the more your perspective is concreted in, I just need to show up and do my best and then leave the rest. And then I do know that at the end of the day, weeks, months down the road, all those days are going to add up. Even the ones where I felt like crap, even the days where I didn't want to show up, I showed up because those are going to matter. But if I didn't and I just got to cherry pick the best days that were sunny and 45 to run, where I was running off 3 days, like that's one of the most common things. Like, oh, dude, I felt great today, crushed it. Like, you also skipped the last 4 days. What'd you expect? And then we judge ourselves like, but yeah, man, or and then we'd look at, oh, well, that's that I'm getting better. Like, no, you're not. You just showed the fitness that you had, and you're fresh from 4 days off. You didn't get that much better day if you had been consistent and done it. So it's an interesting way to look at progress and look at training and look at life, is just showing up and then seeing where you end up. Because I tell you this personally, and then I'm gonna shut up for a second. I tell you this personally, as a person in recovery, as an athlete, as a father, as a person who's been, the other half of this podcast and our community and our team, that if 3 years ago I would have been, all right, well, what do you want to do with this? Oh, well, I want to do this, and then this is the direction we're going to head, and we got to do these things first because this is what people test you, and Bill Gates, he read this book and he was living in a closet, and the next thing you know, like, he's a billionaire, baby. Like, that's what you got to do, man. You got to do it, and you got to put out videos every day. That's what all the people are doing. Then I'd be miserable and I would have quit already, and we probably wouldn't be a tenth of the where we are now. And I don't even know where we are. Like, because to say that you're here is an understanding of where you're going to be and where you are on that, like the dial of that spectrum. But and every time somebody asks, like, what's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? Well, I don't know. I barely have my 10-minute plan laid out, but I know I want to keep having fun. I want to do my best, and I want to connect with people, and that is what I want. And I just think that, and obviously, like our podcast and what we've been able to, you know, somehow accomplish, even if it's by accident. It's not the greatest analogy for everything, but it's just there's so much to be said for just doing your best each day, being authentic, or trying to be authentic, and then loving what you do, and then just I don't want to say about like not caring where you end up because I care a lot, but I just think about say about caring about the right things, and then I think I want to say success follows, but I think it's we all have a different version of success, whether it's being a good husband or a good wife or a good coworker or a good aunt or a good friend. Like we all have these different versions of success, and what we can't get lost in our pursuit of excellence or better performance or longer races or faster times is how we are going to judge our whole body of work of success, and who we are when we're not training, who we are when we are racing. And I think it's tough, but I think it's ultimately incredibly rewarding to look at it and fulfilling to look at it that way.
Yeah, man.
That was a good one.
There's a lot there that you said.
I know I was
But,
talking way too
but
much.
it's good. And I mean, like, going back to the part about does it feel like you? And when we do this podcast, absolutely. I think that is the most important piece, the authenticity of who we are, because how you mentioned, yeah, could we get some big guests on here and throw gas on the fire? Yeah, I mean, that would not be hard to do, but that is not us. So all of a sudden you got, you know, 5 times as many people listening to the podcast on one day, and they're like, who are these clowns? And it doesn't work. It doesn't seem, it's that big, it's what is that line? Attraction, not promotion.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the other
another
line that we,
another line from A. It's attraction rather
yeah,
than
I just
promotion.
always love that because it's not about trying to blow the roof off every other day or something like that. Because I think a lot of people, that's obviously you can do it, but whenever I think of that, I think of products that just flood the market, a bunch of people buy them, and me included sometimes, and then you never use them because you're just in a moment of weakness or whatever, and you kind of fell into a trap, and it's like, well, I guess they said they money back guarantee, but I don't really feel like dealing with that crap or whatever. So they sell a zillion things that nobody cares about or nobody uses, whether it's some kind of program or whatever through the marketing. So, and then intention. And our intention is to basically be here every day that we do this and just see what happens, more or less. I mean, there's a lot of times when obviously I have no idea what we're going to talk about and I have no idea what to say. And there's really some nice comfort in that because we definitely have goals. But I mean, like this idea of putting pressure on yourself is not cool, man. There's enough pressure all the way around. And then for you and I to put more pressure on each other just seems ridiculous. And I think at least I'd like to think there's a lot of wisdom in that. It's not like we're trying to screw things up. We're trying to do the right things and sort of I don't know. Instead of fighting through it, we're trying to love ourselves through it in a way. And to me, that's just so beautiful because I think that we could do that with training too. And say, I suck or I can't. I should be doing more. Just like have a little grace with yourself and just keep moving. It's not the end of the world if you had a bad workout. You don't have to go out today and just throw a like gas on the fire by doing a run twice as long as you've run in the last 6 months just to prove to yourself that you can do it and then completely throw everything out of whack. Just stay where you're at. It's in the moment, right? It's in the moment. If you're taking the right steps. You have the innate understanding of that inside you and just do that.
It's we have a tendency, as I think just humans, to jump to the quick fix, like the knee jerk reaction to add on more training or to make up this run on today, or to 100% totally scrap it and start over. I mean, as a coach, I see both on a weekly basis. I see athletes on Tuesday or Wednesdays have green, 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 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, consistent, consistent, consistent. One bad day, or maybe even two, a Thursday, Friday. And then inevitably, and I know this because I see it coming, is I'm just going to start back next Monday. Let's just start over. I'm just going to go for because what the goal is not to build consistency or to build habits. It's to build a green week. And that is the only measure of success. And so a green week, if you're not on Training Peaks, a green week is all workouts hit to, with their intended purpose, for the most part. It's like they've done them. And there are so many athletes who will, and I see this a lot, and I'll oftentimes add them back in. Like if they miss a workout that's red, they'll delete it. I'm like, no, 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 I'm adding that back in. Like, and it's not about
No, no, no.
it's no, 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 no. You're not just moving it but it's their obsession with completion and perfection that says to them, "I'm headed in the right direction. I'm being successful." But that again, that obsessiveness is is negative. It's just not good. It's not a good behavior, I don't think, to have in terms of showing yourself like being fulfilled with what you can do, not what you can't. I go play basketball when I want to, and I'll go play with Hayden, and I have no disillusions that I'm ever going to be able to dunk a basketball. Ever. Never have. I got the rim like twice in my entire life, and I feel like Michael Jordan. But when I go out and play, I don't not play because I can't dunk. I go out and play because I know and I do what I can do because I know what I can do, and I just enjoy that and have fun. When athletes train and they have one missing day, well, I can't be perfect this week, so I'm just not doing anymore. You can call it self-sabotage, you can call it, addicted to perfection, whatever it is, but the in like the end goal is just to do the best you can every day. So even if you have a hiccup, wake up next day, start back over again. And there is nothing really to start back over again if you're on this really, really, really long journey or this very, very, very long process. You want to be on one journey and involved in one process. You don't want to have to start over 19 times to figure it out. And mistakes happen, mistakes happen, injuries happen, sickness happen, and also good decision making happens. Like that's something the athletes need to be applauded for. I just felt off today. I was super exhausted. I didn't get a lot of sleep. I felt a little, scratch in my throat. I just feel like it was best to take the day off. Dude, good for you. Wake up tomorrow, get back on the horse, see what happens again. And so they either have that knee-jerk reaction to pull the ripcord and think, I got to start over, I'm done. It's not going to be good. This week is already not good enough. My training is already not good enough. I might as well just scrap it and just put off this race and not do it because it's not going to be good enough. So what am I going to learn from failing at another expectation or not reaching another outcome-based goal? And then you got the other ones who Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday happen. Well, I missed Friday and so Saturday's done, and so Sunday I've got a long run. It's an hour and a half, but I did miss Friday, which was another run in the swim. So I'm gonna bump those over to Sunday. Now I'm gonna do two runs and a swim on Sunday because if I don't, then I won't have gotten all the work in. And also, big mistake because you're overloading a day. So you have these two options of spectrum where you have a give up and then you have an overcompensate because they have to have it done a certain way or it's not worth it. And then you have the athlete in the middle, which is what the way I feel like it should be is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, nailed it. Friday, woke up, didn't feel good, or work was crazy. Guess what, coach? Just didn't get it in. Wake up tomorrow and hopefully I can do better. Bingo. Because that's what's called sustainable. You're not playing catch up and you're not starting over. You're just showing up when you can as the best you can. And those are all going to be relative. The best you can today is not tomorrow because they're going to be different. Life is going to be different. Work, sleep, energy, soreness, everything, weather. It's all going to be different. So your best is always going to produce a relative result. So don't judge yourself on that. Like just be kind to yourself and understand that the way that we progress and the way that you want to see changes in your body and the adaptations that you want are over the long haul. They're not going to be gone in a day and they're not going to be made in a day. They happen over a long period of time. So you have to be smart in taking those. So take steps, don't take leaps. Like don't jump from the cliff because you missed your ride. Like take your time, take small steps, and understand that you're going to get there when you get there, and it might not be on your time, and that's also okay.
Hmm. I went to that meditation group last night, and really what you're talking about, I think a lot of us tend to, they were talking about suffering, and I think a lot of what we do can create suffering. He described suffering as craving something you don't have, and that is the ultimate, I guess, way to think about being in the moment. Is that if you're craving something you don't have, whether it be a certain speed or a certain goal for whatever, then that's going to create suffering. So we don't want to add to that, right? By always being out there looking for something else. And I think there's just it's just such a jewel of wisdom to me to think about what today brings and like how you put that. Today is today and tomorrow will be different and just accept what's here. And that goes so well with training to me because you can't do something you can't do. And the only thing you can do is just try and get out there and put intent into it. And I love the parts about how sometimes we just don't feel like it's going to happen. I mean, you can't predict a lot of times what's going to happen on workouts, and there's so much of a. Can we just talk about that idea of okay, I don't feel like working out, which happens probably more often than not, I'm guessing. And then the process of getting from that point into the actual workout. And that's just the most intense mystery to me to think about is like, why, why is it always like that? Getting out of bed. It's like, man, I don't feel like getting up. It's so comfortable. And then you get up and it's like, oh, I feel good in this state too.
Mm-hmm.
But getting through that transition from I don't want to get out there and work out, and then how we talk about, yeah, sometimes putting those shoes on just can make the difference. And that just fascinates me because it feels like there's always that struggle, right? Am I just making this up, or do most people think like this?
Well, no, I think I like what you said about it's we yearning for something is suffering in a way because you're putting energy towards something that you don't have or that you want and you feel like you can't get or you can get instead of, like I was saying before, be grateful, do nothing, and being content with what you have or where you are or the progress that you've been given instead of comparing yourself to others or where you want to go. It's, yeah, I mean, like this, jealousy and greed and like all those things, are, it's a form of suffering because you're always in a state of I'm not enough or I don't have enough or I can't do enough or I won't be enough. And that is a suffocating experience because you're always suffering. You're never content, you're never happy, you're never pleased. You're just going through life trying to be someone or somewhere or something that you're currently not. When the truth is that, like, and I was having this conversation offline before we started the podcast with an athlete who was saying they felt guilty over not this athlete went over on a run and we've tried to like really rein back on some things to get the health back. And yeah, so what exactly do you feel? So the athlete went over on run time, and I was like, that was like a 25% increase on what you were supposed to run. We're trying to unload things. Let's relax. Like, we're in a good spot. Don't. And so I felt real guilty. I was like, what do you feel guilty about? Like, not running more? And this athlete isn't like this at all, but it's an interesting phrase that we use sometimes, but we compartmentalize our guilt when you look around like the world we live in and you see people saying the things they're saying or doing the things they're doing or just lacking like a total sense of any at all human decency. And that person might say something or do something that you're just appalled with and they have no remorse and no guilt overall, and then you come up on a Saturday and they're like, yeah, they're like, I missed my 30-minute run today and I just feel so guilty. And you're like, there's a lot of things you should probably change when it terms to like feeling guilt. But it's that kind of internal suffering where we have things or we have these preconceived notions or expectations of where we want to be or who we want to be, and if we're not there, then we're not really anywhere. And I think that's maybe what the root of it is that you find yourself nowhere because you're not happy with where you are because you don't even know because you're obsessed with where you want to go, or you can't appreciate and be grateful for the life that you have because you're so worried about what you don't. You're chasing, you're chasing all these other things that you need to buy or you need to do because what you have isn't enough. But I think feeling like you have enough is also a scary thing because we're, I think, hardwired to always want more. And then you talk to people when they're about to, pass away or they're old and they're like, well, they're like, I had way more than I've ever needed, and I wish I hadn't spent so much time chasing this or chasing that. I think it's a hard balance because when you're a type A person, like most triathletes are, when you're performance wired, do everything great in life, you feel like you just have to hold it together. But then a lot of times, if you have to like look in the rearview mirror, there won't be anything there because you won't even remember what's been going on or what you've achieved or what you've been able to overcome because you've always been obsessed with what you don't have or where you haven't been yet.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, impermanence. Everything's impermanent, and it's the ability to appreciate what you have right now that matters because you really don't even have it because it's gone. Uh,
Nothing is ever the same.
no, but it's all good, it's not like a negative thing. It is what it is, and I do think that there's, me, I think I, I fight with myself rather than accept that a lot of times, but I love the concept of just being content with, what is, and that doesn't mean staying put. It's just that means you're okay with where you are right now, and you know that you're moving the right direction. And
Well, well, I think that the way that we make decisions says a lot about our happiness with where we are. And I think that, or our content, or being pleased, or being grateful, that if you're able to make decisions that it can be objective, like if you're on a really really good streak of running and riding or being super consistent with training, and then one day you wake up and you think I've got a little bit of a niggle here, I'm going to take the day off, and you feel zero guilt from it because you inherently know I made the best decision I could make today, and that is all I need to do. Then you leave the rest and you wake up tomorrow and you get back to work. Like that is a sign that an athlete is in a really, really good mental, emotional, and physical space. Is that they don't look at it as if I'm skipping a workout, then I'm not being good enough. Or if I skip this, I'm gonna lose fitness. Or I'm gonna have to play catch up. Or I had it later in the week. It's just today is what it is. And tomorrow could well, it couldn't even come, but it's going to be vastly different. And we don't even know how we're going to feel. So the best I can do today, and that answer might be to just not do anything. And that might be the absolute best thing for my body and for my fitness versus the athlete who absolutely feels like something. And I think that's also like a interesting kind of like analogy or similarity to athletes when they get into taper is that they they have to do something or they feel like they're losing. Something has to be here because doing nothing feels like a loss or a strike against them or something that's negative. When the truth is sometimes just absolutely doing nothing is the best possible thing you can do. And that's taking a day off when you might feel sick, taking a day off to spend with your family, taking a day off when you're feeling a little bit like you're feeling your hamstrings too tight, versus or when your kid's got a ball game, or just doing nothing. Like, and a lot of times we're better off doing nothing and making a decision to just stand pat and just hold off than we are making a snap judgment based on our ego or our fear.
all right,
That's a wrap.
that's a wrap, man.
This is
Expected a million more downloads on this cast today.
Hey, this is probably a great example of just show up. You never know what's going to happen because I feel like this was probably a mediocre at best podcast.
Come on, man.
I do, man. I feel like I did a really poor job of articulating what I really wanted to get out today. And sometimes I feel like I do a really good job. Some days,
Yeah, you sound
really,
like one of your athletes.
I know, man. Today wasn't good enough, Mike. I feel like it was, but hey, the
I
effort was
just
there,
feel
the
so
intent was
guilty
there.
about this, man.
I don't feel, I know I feel zero guilt.
Zero guilt.
I feel zero guilt. I'm just saying, I'm being objective and saying, you know, it just kind of is what it was. I could probably have done a better job articulating a few things I wanted to, but hey, I showed up, I tried. Maybe, you got some out of it. If you didn't, I'm sorry. Show up again. I'll be back Thursday to try to do a better job. But no, in all seriousness, we appreciate all of you that have listened and that will listen. Go back to the archives. We have 349 different episodes with all different kinds of topics. Mike does a really awesome job of outlining those. This last podcast, I got a lot of great feedback, not just in the listener questions and the entertainment and the energy I think we had in that podcast, but also the way you were able to outline the questions and kind of the bullet points that we had and providing that. Again, if you're not in that group and you want to be a part of it, it's on Facebook. It's a Crushing Iron Group. So search that, answer a quick question, and we would let you in. If you haven't been and want to check it out, our website is c26triathlon.com. It is a one-stop shop for all things training, coaching, camps, and the like. Check it out, peruse it, and also does an awesome job of highlighting our amazing team. And if you have any questions, you can hit up Mike at crushingiron@gmail.com, or you can always email me as well, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, man. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. Appreciate you. I thought you articulated well.
I appreciate that.
All right, man. Have a good day.
See you, dude.